everyone, Jolene here from Bookworm Adventure Girl. Welcome back. And if you are new, thanks for checking out my channel. Please hit subscribe and stick around. There is a lot to cover today, but before I get to this big pile of books next to me, I want to say thank you to everyone for your support in my last video, which celebrated passing 500 subscribers. It turns out that I completely missed a question, and I've received a few more questions since then, so I am going to do a shorter Q&A 2.0, and I will also talk about Canada Reads, which wrapped up on a Thursday this past week. So I will talk about how that all went down. Spoiler, I think it's the best year yet. So that's the plan for my next video, which will probably post tomorrow. Today, I am going to talk about the BookTube Prize and about all of the books that I read in March. So first, let's start with the BookTube Prize. The BookTube Prize is organized by Robert from Barter Hordes, who just does a phenomenal job of organizing this. Booktubers, subscribers, and readers who are part of the BookTube community, anyone part of the BookTube community can become judges. And in each round, we judge 6 books until the top 3 books in fiction, translated fiction, and nonfiction are chosen. So I will leave a link to the BookTube Prize channel and those videos so you can check it all out if you want to see more. So for the Octofinals, the first round, I was in Group G for translated fiction. And 2 of my top 3 books made it through to the quarterfinals. So I'm very happy about that. I'm disappointed about the one, but that's okay. So I'm going to show you all 6 books, and then I'm going to talk about the bottom 3 books. The other 3, the top 3, will have to wait until the next round for me to be able to talk about them, since I will only talk about the books once they are no longer in the competition. Since people are still reading them, there's still several rounds to go. Since this is also a wrap-up video, I am going to start by sharing the first lines of all of the books like I usually do, at least for the books that I can talk about. So the 3 books that made it through to the next round for the BookTube Prize that I'm not going to talk about are How to Order the Universe, and this is by Maria Jose Ferrada, and this is translated from the Spanish by Elizabeth Bryer. Next is Khalil by Yasmina Khadra. This is translated from the French by John Cullen. And the third book that went through is Where You Come From by Sasa Stanisic. And this is translated by Damion Searls, translated from the German. So those are the 3 books that I can't talk about, and we will see if any of them make it to the end. The 3 books that I can talk about, this is my number 6 choice, and it begins like this. As the splendid river flows through the Yongan city's center and heads east, it separates into the Lotus and Peacock rivers in Luoding district. And that is from Strange Beasts of China by Yan Ji, and it's translated from the Chinese by Jeremy Tiang. I really wanted to like this book so much more than I did, and I didn't exactly dislike it. I just felt that I was missing something, and I don't know if that's because things really did get lost in translation, or if it's that I didn't understand things because it's not normally the type of book that I would read. I don't know what happened here. The protagonist is never named. She's a writer, and she is writing about the beasts in this fictional city in China. And each chapter is about a different kind of beast. So there's sorrowful beasts, joyful beasts, returning beasts, things like that. There's several of them. And each chapter is a description of that particular beast. And there's a bit of a story around the writer, the narrator's encounter with those type of beasts. And then it kind of describes the similarities or differences between the beasts and humans. And this is where I thought there might have been a deeper message. I wondered if the idea was that we all have beast-like qualities, or that we deal with different beasts all the time. Was it that there is a fine line between being human and being beast-like because we have so much in common? I don't know, or was I just totally missing the point altogether, which might be the case. And I'm still not exactly sure. And, some things at the end do kind of come together in a way. There is some kind of closure for the narrator, but that story wasn't really fully developed enough for me. And I don't know, I just think that this book would be for other people. It would be for people who, want to read something a little bit different. It would be for readers who like when other worlds are created, and there's a bit of a fantasy element to it too. So I would say there is. So if you like fantasy, you might want to try this. Okay, this next book begins like this. Today a dwarf smiled at me. And this is from Loop by Brenda Lozano, and it's translated from the Spanish by Annie McDermott. This had a really interesting structure. It's like a stream of consciousness. The main character is a modern day Penelope waiting for her Odysseus, sort of. In this case, she's waiting for her boyfriend Jordan, who has gone overseas for a funeral. So it's not like, he took off and she doesn't know where he is. The narration is done through snippets of her writing. She writes in this notebook, and each thought is a paragraph or a few sentences. And sometimes it's about what she's doing. Sometimes it's about how, she is missing Jordan, and there's just this constant waiting. And I think this was kind of an experimental, and I did like the writing. There were some very interesting thoughts that were captured in very unique ways, and sometimes, they would make me stop and think, so I do appreciate that. But I would say that this is for anyone who wants to read something a little more experimental. If you like books written in a stream of consciousness, then this totally might be your thing, because it's in that format. And I would say for any fans of the Odyssey, or even Margaret Atwood's Penelopiad, because anyone who enjoys retellings might like it. And then the last BookTube Prize that I can talk about, I actually finished last month, and it begins like this. Oops. I didn't know it would be such a big deal. It's not like it's incurable. And this is Magma by Thora Hjorleifsdottir, I think, and it's translated from the Icelandic by Meg Matich. I am really disappointed that this didn't make it to the next round. I rated this number 2 because I thought it was so well written. The story is told in very short chapters, about 1 or 2 pages, and each chapter is like a fragment of the protagonist's relationship with this manipulative man. So the main character is Lila, I think is how you say it. She's a young university student who falls hard for a young man who, at first is very charming. And as the reader, you are put into Lila's mind as she begins to rationalize things that he does and says. And it's so hard to keep reading as you kind of see her spiral in this relationship. And she's constantly wanting to please him, and several times I was like, no, don't fall for it. But that's why I think the book was so brilliant, because it is the subtlety of things that are sometimes missed, and especially to the person in it, it can go overlooked. And I think this book is well worth a read. It's a quick read, and this would be for anyone who likes being inside of the main character's head, anyone who likes character-driven novels, and if you are interested in books about relationships gone wrong, that would be good. So those are the BookTube Prize books that are no longer in the competition. For the quarterfinals round, this is round 2, I am reading Group B in fiction, and I am very happy with the books in this round, as 5 out of 6 of them were already on my TBR. So I will be reading Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan, Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead, Still Life by Sarah Winman, The Promise by Damon Galgut, Crossroads by Jonathan Franzen, and the only book that I do already own, thanks to one of my subscribers and friends, Deb, is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. So I will be starting those soon, and I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing how this round goes. So next, my wrap up. In March, I finished reading 12, almost 13 books, and 5 of those were for the BookTube Prize. So that leaves 7 books left that I finished. I did 3 buddy reads in March. The first one was with Deb Johnson, who sent me Project Hail Mary. When Marjorie was 10, she fell in love with a beetle. And this comes from Miss Benson's Beetle by Rachel Joyce. This book grabs you and pulls you in from the very beginning. I was hooked after the first chapter. I loved the characters in this book. Marjorie Benson is a single woman. She's a teacher, not a very good one. Marjorie's life is kind of sad. She herself seems very frustrated with her life. And one day she decides to quit her job and go looking for the golden beetle that her father had told her about and always talked about when she was a child. And she realizes that she needs some help because she doesn't think she can do the expedition alone. So she puts an ad out for an assistant. And Enid Pretty applies, and she is the exact opposite of Marjorie in every possible way. The contrast of these two characters, I thought, was done to perfection. As they set out on this adventure, Marjorie is regretting hiring an assistant, but Enid proves to be useful. And the development of their friendship was humorous and heartwarming. And as these two women learn about each other, we also get glimpses into their backstories and find out, what they're hiding from. So this story had some very unexpected parts for me, and I really liked that. I didn't love the ending, but it was okay. I really liked the writing in this, and I have a couple other Rachel Joyce books sitting on my shelf, I'm staring at them right now, that I would like to read those. So this book would be for anyone who likes books about the importance of friendship. If you like quirky characters and if you are up for a bit of an adventure, then I say go for it. So thanks again to Deb for reading this with me. The next buddy read started like this. Amma is walking along the promenade of the waterway that bisects her city. A few early morning barges cruise slowly by. And this is from Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. I did this as a buddy read with Gemma from Gem of Books, who I absolutely love. And I will share with you what I have already shared with Gemma. How? My biggest question is, how? How did this book win the Booker Prize in 2019? I'm sure that this is an unpopular opinion, but I just don't get it. There's no punctuation in the book, and I thought that might be a problem. But it turns out it didn't actually bother me at all, and it wasn't long before I actually didn't even notice that. But I didn't get the point of having no punctuation. But again, that became a minor issue. This is really a collection of 12 interconnected stories about 12 Black women living in England, and I was okay with it at first. I got the first few stories in. Dominique's story was one of my favorites early on, but somewhere in part 2, I started feeling like I was reading the same story over and over and over again. The names of the characters changed, and a few details changed here and there, but I got bored and I had to force myself to keep picking the book up. The themes in the book, I think, are relevant and important. Feminism, LGBTQIA2S+, mother-daughter relationships, rape culture. Like, there's definitely a lot of themes to unpack. Near the end, I did like part 4. I enjoyed Hattie and Grace's stories, and I liked how they were interconnected. And then the final chapter, which is called The After Party, it does kind of bring things full circle, which was okay. But it wasn't enough for me to love the book. So this book would be for anyone who enjoys interconnected stories, likes reading about feminism and LGBTQ characters. Thanks again to Gemma for reading this with me. Hopefully the next time we will pick a book that, is something we don't want to put down. So I mentioned that I did 3 buddy reads in March, and my 3rd buddy read, I am just finishing it up, and it's the book that I chose to read for the March of the Mammoths. And I have a little ways to go. So I am reading Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry with Ollie from Criminality. So I should finish this up in a day or 2. Ollie is already finished. He left me in the dust, which was totally fine because this was Ollie's 100th book for his 100 book challenge. So I wanted him to stay at his pace, and I'm so excited that he finished that. So I will talk about this more when I do my April wrap up, but thanks so much to Ollie for reading this with me and for your patience while I finish it up. So the next book, my pile's getting higher here. My next book begins. Do you want me to meet you at the cemetery, Sloan? And this is from the Happy Ever After playlist by Abby Jimenez, and this is the 2nd book in the Friend Zone series. And for someone who doesn't normally read romance, I have to say that I really enjoyed the first book, but I enjoyed this one even more. And this carries on the story of Sloan from the first book, and it follows Sloan's relationship with Jason. And Jason is a famous singer and musician. So each chapter gives a song, creating a playlist for the book, which, at first I thought that might be a little cheesy, but it wasn't. I actually liked it. The story is funny. It's also moving at times. I thought the characters were all very well developed. I even like the dog, Tucker. So this is a good read for anyone who likes contemporary romances. If you liked the first book in the series, and if you like a book that will leave you with a good feeling, then you might want to check this one out. I'll start piling over here. Okay, so there's a few more to go here. This next book starts. Let's say that you are a 69-year-old Jamaican man called Stanford, or Stan for short, who once faked your own death. And this is from a debut novel called These Ghosts Are Family by Maisy Card. Oh, this book. It started off so strong. I thought it was going to be about a man who faked his own death and reunites with his daughter, who works at the care home where he lives now. Because that's how it's set up, and I was all for it. But it was not long before I just got completely lost, and even when I thought I'd found myself back into the story, I would veer off the path again. The structure of the book is very different, and I just didn't get along with it. It's unfortunate, but I just didn't care after a while. I didn't care about the characters or the story. It jumps around in time and place. I was interested in the part about Jamaica at first. And normally I would be all over a story with the themes, themes of colonialism, slave ownership, family secrets. I love stories with, all of that, with multi-generations and with things revealed over time. But I just could not get into this one. And I am pretty sure it's the structure, but maybe it was also wrong book, wrong time. That sometimes happens for me. So I know that there are people who really enjoyed this book. So if you like the themes that I talked about and you are willing to read a book with an unusual, in my opinion, structure, then, please give it a go. And if you have read this and loved it, please tell me, what am I missing? Please share that in the comments below too. So the next book starts like this. I think you're the one I spoke to on the phone, the librarian, with a voice so soft that I went out and bought myself a cashmere sweater. This is from You Love Me by Caroline Kepnes, and this is the third book in the You series. I loved the first two books. You know, to be inside Joe Goldberg's head is always a wild ride. This story begins with Joe getting a volunteer job at the local library in a little town that he has just moved to in order to get away from the city, among other things. And he likens this new town to Debbie Macomber's Cedar Cove, so it seems picturesque and perfect. And his house even has a whisper room, which, you know, does come in handy. So once again, Joe tries to put his past behind him, but it's at the local library where he meets Mary Kay. And, you know, okay, so I'm just going to stop there and say that Kepnes could have probably been a little bit more creative with names there. But anyway, there is instant chemistry between Joe and Mary Kay. And if you're familiar with the story, you've read the other two books, you will not be surprised that she quickly becomes, you know, Joe's newest obsession. So he even manages to get Mary Kay's teenage daughter to accept him in their lives. And eventually Joe's past does catch up with him and things go completely off the rails. Now, if you've watched the Netflix series, there are some huge differences. In some ways, I liked the show way better. It had more twists, it was more complex, the story had more layers. I thought the ending of the Netflix series was brilliant. The book has a twist at the end too, but I found this one to be more humdrum than the show. And overall, I just found this book to be less compelling than the first two. But I still can't help but like Joe Goldberg's character, you know, even though I know he is a psychopath. So I believe that there is a fourth book coming out in this series, so I will definitely be here for it. So if you are a fan of the You series, then, you know, this is worth a read. I would read them in order as well. The next book was my book club book, and it begins like this. Killing someone is easy. Hiding the body, now that's usually the hard part. So this is from the Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. And this is the first book. I don't know if it's a series, but it's at least a duology. I loved the setting for this story. It's in a retirement home or a retirement village. And every Thursday night, there is a group that gathers in the jigsaw room to solve real cold cases for fun. And so my favorite part of this book was that I really enjoyed the characters. There's Joyce, Ibrahim, Elizabeth, and Ron. And I think Joyce is my favorite. And then one day a murder actually takes place very close to them, and you can bet that these unofficial detectives are all over it. They even work with the police to put, you know, all of the clues together. And when it comes to the actual murder plot and the whodunit, I thought the story was a bit lacking, and I was definitely more interested in the characters than I was in the murders. But overall, you know, this is like, it's a fun, it's a cozy murder mystery. So if that is your thing, you will probably enjoy this. The second book is supposed to be, you know, even better. So I may give it a go at some point, but it's not high on my TBR at the moment. So here we are, the final book, and it begins like this. I am not a hero. And this is from Anne Frank Remembered, the story of the woman who helped to hide the Frank family by Miep Gies and Allison Leslie Gould. So this is, you know, obviously nonfiction, and this is the story of how Miep Gies, her husband, and others helped the Frank family. It bugs me that the price sticker is like crazy glued to the cover. Yeah, but okay, I won't talk about my pet peeves. I'll just stick with the book. But this perspective was so interesting. You know, I think we're used to hearing Anne's story from the people who were inside the annex, mostly through her diary and also from her father, Otto. But Miep's book, it adds some details and kind of another layer to this very well-known story. We learn how plans were made, what it was like to put your life on the line for others, what it was like to be part of this resistance. And even though, you know, I am quite familiar with this story, I was unaware of how much Jan, Miep's husband, was involved in the resistance, and how Miep and Jan helped others as well, not just the people in the annex. So as Miep describes, you know, getting food for 8 extra people and how people sacrificed for others, I felt like I was there. So if you are interested in the story of Anne Frank, you know, even if you think you already know the story, I think that this is worth a read. It's a quick read, and, you know, it's an added perspective. So those are all the books that I read in March. Please let me know if you have read, you know, any of these books, if you are interested in reading any of these books. Let me know what books you read in March that you think I might be interested. I'm always happy to hear about what you're reading. And again, I will leave links below for the BookTube Prize, so you can follow along and check that out if you would like, and see what books are in the other categories and what made it through. And then tomorrow I will be answering some more of your questions and talking about Canada Reads. I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and don't forget to make every day an adventure.